Good afternoon all, my name is Mlindo Frank, together with my colleagues discussing a coursework about public sector comparator as a tool in undertaking value for money. Public sector comparator, according to World Bank, is a tool used by governments to make decisions by testing whether a private investment proposal offers value for money in comparison with the most efficient form of public procurement. The world has become so competitive today that governments are looking for new ways to finance and operate projects, hence public-private partnership, and at the forefront of public-private partnership is value for money. Public sector comparator provides a benchmark for estimating value for money from alternative bids, and it is also expressed in net present value, which is a good aspect for value for money, because in value for money we say $1 today is better than $1 tomorrow. Other undertaking are listed below, as you can see. And weaknesses for using public sector comparator, the major one being data and assumptions for public sector comparator tend to be manipulated. Also, there is lack of non-financial aspects, for instance, social and environmental aspects. Other weaknesses are also listed. Suggestions for addressing the weaknesses of the model, the major one being public sector comparator should be used with similar tools to provide better results, and other tools will mean cost-benefit analysis, environmental impact assessment analysis, and so on. I call upon my colleagues to give their presentation, and over to you, Stephen.
Stephen Nenda, pursuing a master's in business administration at Uganda Management Institute, specializing in management. In this presentation, we are going to be looking at the working of the public sector comparator in undertaking value for money analysis, and the other one we shall be looking at the weaknesses of using the public sector comparator in assessing value for money analysis, and also the suggestions to help in reducing those weaknesses that come with the adoption of the public sector comparator. To start with, the definition of the public-private partnership. This is a partnership between the public sector entity and the private sector to deliver project or services traditionally provided public sector. Then the public sector comparator, this is an estimate of the net present cost to the government if it has to deliver a project under a more traditional procurement. I will go to the working of the public sector comparator in undertaking value for money analysis. It is expressed, the public sector comparator is expressed in net present value or net present cost terms. The weakness that comes with the public sector comparator, one is that the data and assumption of the PSC tend to be manipulated by exaggeration of innovation and limited scope for efficiency improvement in the public project. Then also we have lack of standard method for identifying and measuring values of risk in PSC calculation. Suggestions, one is that the PSC should be used with other similar models to provide better results. Then also a thorough review is required by policymakers, research and academicians as to how best PSC can be utilized for infrastructure development. Thank you so much. That's what I had to present briefly here on the PSC.
Good evening. This is Sarah Nomugisha, student at Uganda Management Institute, offering a master's in business administration. Today we are going to look at public sector comparator as a tool in undertaking value for money assessment for public-private partnership projects or procurement. In a generic sense, when procuring public-private partnership projects, value for money assessment could be determined through a comparative analysis of contractor proposals against public sector comparator documentation. So we shall look at definitions of these. The public sector comparator is an estimate of the net present cost to the government if it has to deliver the project under a more traditional procurement method. And we shall also see the definition of public-private partnership, which refers to the private sector designing, building, maintaining, operating, and financing infrastructure assets traditionally provided by the public sector. Then, definition of value for money is that it refers to the best available outcome through a comparative analysis of all benefits, costs, and risks over the whole life procurement. It is associated with concepts of 3 E's: economy, efficiency, and effectiveness, which refer to the whole life value of the service provided. Let's look at one of the workings of the public sector comparator and undertaking value for money analysis. Public sector comparator provides a benchmark for estimating value for money from alternative bids. Once final bids are received from the private sector, the whole life cost of these bids is compared with the public sector comparator to determine whether the bids submitted provide a better value for the taxpayer. Thank you. This is what we had for you today.
My name is Balirain Alan, and I'm presenting the coursework for Public-Private Partnership. And here, the coursework requirement, Section A, or Part A of the question, was to illustrate the working of the public sector comparator in undertaking value for money analysis. Then Part B, what are the weaknesses of using the public sector comparator in assessing value for money analysis, and what suggestions can we provide to reduce the weaknesses that reside with the adoption of the public sector comparator as a tool in assessing value for money proposition of delivering either public infrastructure projects or services using public-private partnerships. And here we first defined the public-private partnership being the partnership between the public sector entity and the private sector organizations to deliver a project or service traditionally provided by the public sector. We also defined the public sector comparator being an estimate of the net present cost to the government if it has to deliver the project under a more traditional procurement method. So we also went ahead to finally define value for money, and here it refers to the best available outcome through a comparative analysis of all benefits, costs, and risks over the whole life procurement. We also said it is associated with the concepts of 3 E's, that is economy, efficiency, and effectiveness, which refer to the whole life value of the service provided. So Part A of the question required us to look at the workings of public sector comparator in undertaking value for money. And here we found that it provides a benchmark for establishing value for money from alternative bids, that once final bids are received from the private sector, the whole life cost of these bids is compared with the public sector comparator to determine whether the bids submitted provide better value for money to the taxpayer. And we also identified that it is expressed in net present value, which is NPV, or net present cost terms. It being based also on the recent actual public sector methods of providing defined output, which includes any reasonably foreseeable efficiency the public sector could make. Besides that, we also went into looking at the Part B of the question, where we established the weaknesses of using the public sector comparator in making analysis for value for money. And here, one of them is that it lacks the non-financial aspects, for instance, social and environmental aspects across the project phases. And some of those being strategy formulation, procurement, construction and operation phase. And also, while we were reviewing and researching about the weaknesses, we identified that Ismail and Pendo Barry in 2006 found out that it does not provide, that the public sector comparator does not provide any possibility for an accurate estimate for cost in construction and operation evaluation stages. Besides that, we also looked at the suggestion as per the task requirement, and we identified that the public sector comparator should be used with the other similar tools to provide better results. This is due to the fact that some of the factors which are used for value for money comparison are more qualitative than quantitative, for which data is used based on certain assumptions, among others. So we concluded by saying that the public sector analysis, public sector comparator analysis, is the most common analysis used in undertaking value for money by comparing the fiscal cost under the two options, comparing the risk-adjusted cost to the government of procuring the same project through traditional procurement, and the other is to the expected cost of the government of the PPP or the actual PPP bids. However, despite its well-recognized urgency, it has been criticized by some practitioners and researchers for lack of non-financial aspects, being easy to manipulate, and lack of standard method of identifying and measuring values of risk, and difficulty in predicting all possible outcomes of the projects, among others. Thank you very much. My name is Mariraine Alan, MBA 23.